What does it mean to find happiness within yourself? What does it mean to live for yourself? What does it mean to know your purpose? I think all these things are woven into one another. I recently asked my friend, um, 'cause he's a rapper, he's a producer, he does his own thing, and I asked him, "What? How do you know when what you're doing is right? Like, how do you know when that creative process?" I'm trying to find a better way to explain what I mean and not just be have it be a general question. Like, how do you know when the creation feels right? Um, and he was saying that it just feels like he's where he's supposed to be, doing what he's supposed to do. And I'm thinking to myself, I've had moments of that where I do something that in the moment I just feel the pull towards doing it, and it's like something that I have to get out. But I've never felt that about any one particular thing or one particular type of moment. It's always been burst of things. And I'm at this point where I'm in a creative, like I have a lot of ideas of things that I want to do. I even have a lot of things already mapped out, like exactly how I want it to be. But I just can't I want to say I just can't get myself to do it, but it's deeper than that. And the way I described it is I have all of these ideas and things that I want to do on a back server, and I don't have the HDMI cable to connect it to reality. Like, there's no motivation to do it. 'Cause I keep asking myself, why am I doing this again? Before I would say, when I want to do influencing, when I want to be an influencer, I could, make this amazing thing and attract people to my page and then, spread the messages of creativity and hopefully down the line change the world in some way. And a part of me still wants to do that. I really, as much as against my better judgment of what I see every day, I really have hope that humanity can change things, that we could turn things around. Um, but I just feel like there's not enough people that want it, you know. A lot of people, for better or for worse, like the way things are. And they're, even if they're in a horrible situation, they're still quite satisfied with how things are, even though they don't, on the surface, they would say they hate it. Sometimes I feel that way. Oh, I hate it. There's a part of us that is just really a part of the process that maintains the status quo, because change would mean we would have to change. And a lot of people don't like to change. I'm like that sometimes. Um, but it brought up a deeper question of what does it mean to live for yourself? And I mean truly for yourself. Um, for someone like me, I have family, but I don't have children. I don't have a spouse. I don't have any sort of thing that ties me to this world. So asking myself the question of what am I living for? What am I, what is my inspiration for life of being here, whatever? I don't have an answer for that. I don't feel connected to the things that people feel connected to. I don't feel connected to money or to things or to, don't get me wrong, certain experiences would be great to have, but I notice that once they're done, they just fade away like time. Like it's a moment in time that's come and gone, and it reads like a memory of something that I read in someone else's life. Like it doesn't register as a memory for me unless it was really impactful. And a lot of impactful things for me tend to be from a negative space, like something that made me sad or emotional. And even those things, they linger because they bring a level of excitement, not excitement in a exciting way, but they excite the, I guess, synapses in my brain, and they make me feel something versus most things I don't really feel anything about. Um, they basically make me feel something. And I don't have a ton of happy experiences that really made me feel anything beyond excited in the moment. Um, they didn't really impact my life in any real way, the way something negative might have. Because um, my brain is definitely one that's attuned to depression for sure. And I think it's because I'm a very emotional person. When I feel very deeply. I feel it to my core. And I feel like in a lot of ways, I've had to disconnect that intense ability to feel. Because if I felt it extremely intensely all the time, I probably wouldn't be able to function. And that could be a part of the problem, you know. Um, but we don't live in a world that values emotion or feeling or um, when you dive into an idea and really want to flesh it out, our culture tends to graze past things a lot, and that's what it is. But when it comes to someone like me who doesn't have those same attachments to things that other people do, it's not a great sense of importance to someone like me. I really have to think about, what am I living for? What is my reason for life? I feel like I'm in the middle of something. I don't feel like how I feel and think about this is bad. It actually feels like it's more akin to how source consciousness would see things. A level of deep involvement, but also great attachment. I would imagine that consciousness would see things like time and, universes and essentially the people and things that are created in those spaces as something more to observe and learn from, or to just have a neutral response to. It's kind of like it brings a level of stimuli, but you don't really have a feeling towards one thing or the other. I kind of feel that way. Not about all things, but about a lot of things. I would imagine consciousness would see things like time or things that happen in time like a fleeting thing. Like it doesn't, just like, oh, I noticed that and that was it. Be completely living in the moment. And that's great when you're outside of a place like this. It doesn't really matter. But when you're in an experience like this, it could be a little debilitating in terms of, what do I do with this? I feel like I'm supposed to be doing something here with this. And I sit with myself in the quiet and I feel myself desperately trying to figure this out. And eventually I just get tired. I get tired of it and I just honestly want to eat because I don't know what else to do with these feelings or emotions or what I think about this. I feel like people like me, that there's plenty of people like me who feel this way. A lot of us float between the here and now in this space, this universe, this body, and something else all the time. I remember saying that I heard someone say, it was like when you're heavenly minded but no earthly good. It's like you're always out there in the ethers that is very hard to reconnect to here, to this body. And again, it's because there's nothing here that does anything for me. You know, people, things, I love them very much, but there's no life here. It's just existing, but in a really sad way, in a backwards way. Doesn't even make sense. Sometimes I wonder, am I here just to experience how bad can something possibly be? Like, how backward could it be? You know, how extreme could that get where right could be wrong and wrong could be right? You know, like, am I just meant to be here as an observer and whatever energy that I put out in the universe, I'd be that? And my cats are fighting. Lola, Oliver. I don't know what they're fighting over. They're probably fighting over a spot. That's generally what they fight over. One person is sitting in a spot that the other, usually Lola, is sitting in a spot that Oliver wants to sit in, or he wants to lay on her and she doesn't want that. That sounds familiar. But anyway, um, when I go deeper into that thought of what's here, my friend suggested maybe just need a new experience. And I agree with that. I definitely need some sort of new experience, but not if it brings me more sadness. I don't want it if it's going to bring me more frustration or angst about being alive. I remember as when I was younger, I would always ask things of God when I was Christian. I would ask things of God, but I would ask it gently because the universe could turn things on its head really fast. And I would find myself in a losing way more so than actually getting something from it, except for just a hard lesson. And so I've always been really reluctant to ask for anything big because it's never really ended well. Never ended in anything good for me that I can say, oh, yeah, that was worth it. Like, I see why that was worth it. Aside from maybe a change in thought pattern, but nothing that I would say, oh, yeah, that was worth going through the hell of having to deal with that problem. If anything, I think, and this makes me emotional, if anything, I think it made me more closed, just not wanting to venture out or deal with anything because of the sadness it brought along with the lesson. Um, Sometimes I think, am I here just to see, or I think I'm still here just to see, is there any point where things actually get good? Like, is there any point before I die where life can get really good and I could say, okay, okay, I can understand why I went through all of that. I haven't reached that point yet. Um, and I see things around me, good and bad, and I'm like, what are we here for? Is living for the people around you really enough when you still do shit to not think about how bad you feel? Is, living for your kids enough when you're still miserable? Your parents, your family, your whatever your cause that you're doing, people who volunteer for certain things, is it enough when you know, still have vices that you use to not think about the sad things that you avoid all the time? You know, I don't know. I see the good things, but I don't see any impact, you know? I think sometimes maybe I'm just way too attuned to the negative. And that could be true. That could definitely be true. But when I look at the big picture, all the things that we do, even the good things, especially the good things, they don't really equate to anything at all. And I mean, really. You see people, working with the homeless or working with the sick or working with children and things like that. But when I look at our world, did it really matter? I mean, obviously it mattered for the people, but what did it change? Nothing, really. I understand why. I've said this before. I understand why people go berserk. I can fully understand it because you live day after day and it's just the same shit all the time. And nothing ever really changes. It just rearranges into a new something that echoes the last something. um, but back to the original question of what do you live for? What do you live for? If you want to tell me, let me know in the comments. If you've made it this far in the video. um, I really want to hear from people more so who don't have these types of ties that everyone else does, who don't have ties to a family specifically or a spouse or children. I really want to hear from you more. Um, or even people who don't have ties to religion. I really want to hear from people who their soul tie is more so to themselves. So if you take out, or if you do have those things, I want you to eliminate all of those things that you consider to be something that you tie yourself to physically in this world. And just think about yourself only, not the things you do, but who you are. What do you live for when it's just you? Sitting here in this moment right now. No ties to anything else on this planet, but just to you, just to this body. What do you live for? I mean, really think about that. If your answer has to be towards something that exists here, then that's a question. That's a question you might want to ask yourself. Could you live here for just you in this body, in this moment, with no ties to anything at all? And if you couldn't, why not? Or if you could, why? I think that's the end of my talk. I might have something to say later, but that's all I got to say today. Anyway, thanks for listening. Bye.